Lewis and Reinhold, Volume 1, page 277 to 279. The first triumvirate. Caesar now returned from his province, designing to obtain the consulship, and saw that Crassus and Pompey were again at variance. He was unwilling to make one his enemy by applying to the other, and he had no hope of success if neither helped him. He therefore made it his business to reconcile them, showing them that he ruining each other, they would only increase the power of such men as Cicero, Catullus, and Cato, who would be really powerless if they united their friends and adherents and decided and directed public affairs with one power and one policy, and so reconciling them by his persuasion, he brought them together, and out of the three he constituted an irresistible power, with which he overthrew the government of Senate and people. Nor did he make either Pompey or Crassus greater through each other, but through them he made himself greatest of all. For with the support of both he was at once triumphantly elected consul, and when he was consul they voted him the command of armies and allotted him the province of Gaul, and so placed him as it were in a citadel, not doubting but they would divide the rest at their pleasure between themselves when they had confirmed him in his allotted command. Pompey was actuated in all this by an unbounded love of power, and Crassus now added to his old disease of covetousness a new and ardent passion for trophies and triumphs. Emulous of Caesar's exploit, not content to be beneath him in these, though surpassing him in all else, he could not rest or let up till it ended in the ignominious death and in public calamities. When Caesar came down from Gaul to the city of Lucca, many Romans came there to meet him, among them Pompey and Crassus. The latter two held conferences with him in private, and they decided to proceed to still more decisive steps and to take the entire conduct of the state into their hands. Caesar was to keep his army, and Pompey and Crassus were to obtain their provinces and armies. The one way to achieve all this was to stand for a second consulship. They would be candidates, and Caesar was to cooperate with them by writing his friends and sending many of his soldiers to support them in the election. With this understanding, they returned to Rome, where their design was at once suspect, and report was rife that their meeting had been for no good. Why should these men want a second consulship, many asked, and why once again together? Surely, why not with other colleagues? We have many men not unworthy, surely to be fellow consuls with Crassus and Pompey. Alarmed at this opposition, Pompey's partisans resorted to the greatest disorder and violence, and capped it all by waylaying Domitius as he was coming down to the polls before daybreak with his attendants, killing his torchbearer and wounding many, Cato among them. After these had been routed and shut up at home, Pompey and Crassus were proclaimed consuls. Not long after, they once more surrounded the rostra with armed men, ejected Cato from the forum, killed some that offered resistance, and then had Caesar granted his command for another 5-year period, and the provinces of Syria, and both the Spains voted to themselves. When the lot was cast, Syria fell to Crassus and the Spains to Pompey. The death of Crassus in 53 BC precipitated the rupture of the already strained triumvirate, as both Caesar and Pompey sought to gain predominance by winning the support of the important body of Crassus' adherents. When it became apparent that Caesar, even though away in Gaul, was winning in this contest, Pompey and Cato were impelled to combine their factions against him. The crisis came in the 12th month preceding March 1st, 49 BC, on which date Caesar proconsular power extended after the conference at Lucca was to expire. The conquest of Gaul completed, Caesar was ready to return to Rome, but to revert to private citizen status would be to expose himself to easy prosecution by his political enemies for illegal conduct in Gaul. He therefore decided to stand in the election of 49 while he still had his army for the consulship of the following year. His adherents in Rome had already secured the passage of a publicitum specifically authorizing Caesar to stand for the consulship in absentio, a procedure for which there was ample precedent. Thereafter, various anti-Caesarian motions were put through the Senate, but they were usually vetoed by pro-Caesarian tribunes. Then, on December 1st, 50 BC, a resolution in the Senate calling on both Pompey and Caesar to resign their commands in the interest of avoiding civil war was carried by an overwhelming vote. Caesar, who had meanwhile stationed himself with one legion at Ravenna, offered to comply if Pompey did likewise. Instead, the violently anti-Caesarian consuls of the following year flouted more moderate consuls, rammed a resolution through the Senate declaring Caesar a public enemy if he refused to lay down his command by March 1st. Two tribunes, Mark Antony and Quintus Cassius, vetoed the Senate's motion. A few days later, January 7, 49 BC, they were warned by the consuls to leave the Senate House if they wished to escape violence. The Senate passed its ultimate decree instituting martial law, and the two tribunes fled in the night to deliver the news to Caesar. Thereupon Caesar harangued his troops and led them, January 11th, across the little Rubicon River, which was the boundary between Italy and Cisalpine Gaul. Caesar could brook no superior, Pompey no equal. The civil war was on.